Hello, this is Faith at Faith and Books, and we have a very loud bird in the background singing. I haven't made a video in more than a couple of weeks, I think. So I think this is the longest break I've ever taken, maybe. Anyway, life has just been like that. But I just thought I'd catch up this morning. I even overslept this morning. But I'm not watching my little grandson because unfortunately my son-in-law's mother passed away, and so they are currently in California. The funeral is actually today. So I am not watching him, so I do have a little bit of free time. So that's the silver lining, I guess. Anyway, so I did finish 2 books. I finished Lady Audley's Secret. I read that on my Kindle. I got it for free on my Kindle, and that was with the Kate Howe's Victorian Read Along Most Victorian book club, and I really liked it a lot. I gave it 4 stars. I didn't give it 5 stars because it wasn't this, I don't know, for me that has to be sort of this brilliant insight into humankind. It's not at that level, but it was a really fun read. It was very well plotted and paced, and the writing was lively and kept engaged, and it was humorous. It just checked all the boxes. It's a Victorian sensation novel, which I think is a bad name for it, because I don't know, sensation to me means just sort of gratuitous I don't know, excitement added into the unnecessary to the plot maybe, but it's just really means it's a kind of a mystery, so you have to figure out what Lady Audley's secret is. So it was a very, very enjoyable read. We're going to be discussing it at the end of this month, and I recommend it if you want. It made me think of the sort of what's the word I want, moniker, is that the right word? There used to be this catalog called The Common Reader, and the catalog itself was worth reading. It was just so enjoyable, and they would have books in there that they would call thumping good reads, and maybe they weren't highbrow. It's The Common Reader. Maybe they weren't highbrow, but they were just thoroughly enjoyable, well-written books, and I would put Lady Audley's Secret in that category of a thumping good read. And it makes me want to read more by her too. So it seems like the other very popular book by her, the author is Mary Elizabeth Braddon, who I had never heard of before I started following Kate Howe. But the other one is Aurora Floyd. A lot of people are reading that for this October. I'm not, but I'm going to keep it in mind because it was Lady Audley's Secret was quite an enjoyable book. So that was on my Kindle. Then I'm trying to participate in Shaketember. Yeah, it's called Shaketember now. And so I read my first play. I'm doing the Henriade kind of with my husband. We're interested in that. And so I just finished Richard II last night. I've really been having a hard reading week just because I'm very, very tired, not getting enough sleep, and just very, very busy. And I just can't get it all done. And when I go to read, I just fall asleep. So it's bad. But I did finish this book, and I'd seen the play from the Hollow Crown series that came out, I don't know, a while ago now. I had seen that a few weeks ago. So I was familiar with the story. And I think they did a really good job of, I'm pointing to my TV inside. They did a really good job. Yeah, it was very enjoyable. We went to last weekend, not this just past one, today's Monday, so not this just past weekend, but the weekend before, my husband and I went away to Stanton, Virginia for Labor Day weekend. And I posted lots of pictures on Instagram, and I really like Instagram. That's becoming my favorite social media. I don't have very many followers or anything like that, but it's just so easy to upload a picture. So I do a lot of shots of my garden, and I did a lot of shots of what we saw in Stanton. So Stanton is a small city in the Shenandoah Valley, and it's known for several things. It was Woodrow Wilson's home. It's very beautiful. It's an old town that's preserved all their old houses. They have tons of Victorian houses that just beautiful to look at that people have restored. It was a railroad city, you know, where I guess people would bring in things from the mountains to send them out to the sort of Piedmont area. So very early on, it was a railroad town. But back in the, and I thought it was later than this, but I think it was just the very early 2000s, they started a Shakespeare theater there called the American Shakespeare Center Blackfriars Playhouse. Yeah, American Shakespeare Center's Blackfriars Playhouse. So the Blackfriars Theater was one that over in London where Shakespeare staged lots of his plays. Now it's since burned, it burned down maybe while he was still alive, but it's burned down. And so they wanted to start the Shakespeare Center in Virginia, and they hired this architect to recreate what the Blackfriars Theater must have looked like. So the theater is set up like this Elizabethan theater. So you sit on benches, and you can even have seating right on the stage, but they didn't do that because of COVID. But there's a lot of audience interaction, like the actors, they come on before the play and they put on entertainment, they sing songs and do, you know, skits and stuff to warm up the audience. Mostly it's music, singing different songs. And then they do that at intermission too. The actors come out and do that. There's no, there's very little in the way of, well, there's no lighting. There's no special lighting. It's because they didn't have that back in Shakespeare day. And there's very little set, or they just use a few props and very, very simple set design. Very simple, like just sometimes it's pretty much just a bare stage with a couple of props and just the actors. And the actors may or may not be dressed in Elizabethan attire, or attire that would tie directly to the play. So they play around a lot with it. We saw Henry V, which is the last book in the Henriade. So the Henriade is Richard II, because this is a story about how Henry Bolingbroke basically executed a coup and overthrew Richard II. So that's what this play is about. And then the next part of the Henriade is Henry IV parts 1 and 2. So this is 2 plays, I'm slated to read Henry IV part 1 this week. And Steve Donahue of the Shaketember folks, the host, is actually reading this play this week, I believe. I have to catch up on that because I'd like to see the discussion. So I'm going to try and get this read, the first play, read this week if I can, or as much as possible anyway. And then the last part of the Henriade is Henry V, and that's the play that we saw. And that's the play I'm most familiar with because I've read it with my kids when we were homeschooling. I even taught it at a co-op, and I've seen the Kenneth Branagh movie many times. So I'm really familiar with Henry V. So I think I'm not going to read Henry V this Shaketember. But anyway, so we saw Henry V at the theater, and it was good. It was really good. It was fun to go to. They only had half the capacity seating so that everybody could be socially distanced. You had to wear your mask the whole time. So it was a long play. You had to keep the mask on because, of course, the actors can't wear masks, and they're in that building, breathing in because you're sitting at pretty close quarters. So they do that to protect the actors. But it was good. It was a very lively play, but I do think the main actor kind of rushed his lines and he could have given more weight. He was better in the second half of the play than the first, I thought. But there were times where you just seemed like he was just rattling it off. And then other times he did it well, but he was a little bit uneven. I think he's just maybe didn't quite have the acting expertise to be the main character, Henry V. The best actor was the guy who played the part of Llewellyn. He just commanded the stage, and he had everybody laughing. and he was really the best. And then they did some weird gender things, which, granted, Shakespeare invites, because they did that back then because they needed men to play women. So here they had women playing men, and sometimes it was okay and it worked, but it didn't. Like, they had the Dauphin being played by a woman, and it didn't work. It just didn't work. So yeah, so it wasn't the strongest thing I've ever seen at that theater. This is my third time going. I think the first time really spoiled us because we saw Midsummer's Night's Dream, and it was the best thing I've ever seen in my life. We were rolling on the floor. It was so well done. It was just perfection. And so I think it's hard to measure up to that. And also, watching the Kenneth Branagh, I never know if I'm saying his name right, movie interpretation, that's hard to measure up to as well. So I want to extend a little mercy. So that's my critique. It was still worth it, and I love going to Stanton. It's about 3.5 to 4 hours from where we live, and it's just a lovely little town. What they've done since COVID is they've made a pedestrian mall right in the middle of the historic downtown. So they had all these outdoor cafes, and when we went, the weather was absolutely perfect. So that was really fun to just walk around. We went to the Frontier Pioneer. Now I'm forgetting it. The Frontier Culture. I'm forgetting the name. But anyway, we went to this museum, this outdoor living museum that's located right outside of Stanton. And we've done that 3 times now. And I just love going to the different houses. They've actually found old houses in Europe and moved them here to the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. And it's all about the people who first lived, or the people who lived in that valley from 1650 to 1750. That's the time period they're focusing on. And it's Frontier Culture Museum of Virginia. That's the name of it. And so they brought over a house from Ireland. They brought over a house from England. They brought over a house from Germany. They also had an exhibition of a West African village. I think they were going for Nigerian. And then they have a Native American house and set up. So it's really interesting. So these are the people that are living in this area and contributing to the culture from 1650 to 1750. And then they have the 3 settler, like American houses. So the first one is a 1740s, I think I'm remembering the right time, claim cabin, which is just bare. It's like camping out, it's a bare, the minimum structure that you can call a cabin is what it was. And then it's like a shanty claim, I guess, a claim shanty. And then they had a farmhouse of the 1820s, and then a farmhouse of the 1850s. So it was really, I love wandering through and just looking at all the different houses and talking to the different living history interpreters, and so it was quite enjoyable. So that was fun to do again too. So it was a really fun trip, and that was the beginning of our Shaketember. So let me review Richard II quickly. So I use these No Fear Shakespeare, usually, not all the time, but I like them. I think I really use them the way they're meant to be used. I mostly read Shakespeare's own language. If I get stuck, I just glance over here. But I really want to just mostly get Shakespeare, so I only rely on this if I need to. But at the same time, I just don't want it to be, I don't want to get dragged down and not enjoy Shakespeare because I'm struggling with the language. So for me, this really just, I really like this setup. And I think I saw Gina Strayer, is that her name? I just started watching her YouTube channel, and she got one of these, I think for The Tempest, and she really didn't like the plain English, the plain modern English translation. She didn't like it, and I do think they're uneven. Like, they have different people doing it, and some of them aren't so good. They're trying too hard to be modern and talk. These are sort of aimed at teenagers, I think, or college students. This one, though, was well done. I thought it was really well done, the translating into plain current American English. Anyway, this play is about Richard II, who, I guess he had issues. He wasn't a strong king. He tended to listen too much to his inner circle, his little bubble, and they were sort of sycophants, that just kissed up to him and told him what he wanted to hear. So he was a little bit buffered from what was actually going on. At least this is what the impression he's giving. And apparently he wasn't good with the coffers, with the treasury, and so he needed money. He needed money to do things that he wanted to do. However, Shakespeare is incredibly sympathetic to him, and Richard II is so eloquent, and he gets the best parts. He has these long soliloquies where he is just waxing on about being a king and everything that's happening to him, and he's entirely sympathetic. I mean, I choke up when I'm reading what he's saying. It's just beautiful. It's so deep and beautiful and clever. It's just so Richard II, in spite of his faults, comes off so well in this, as such a personality. Henry Bolingbroke, who's going to become, are they the Plantagenets? Who's going to usurp the throne from him, and he's Henry IV, and the father of Henry V. He comes off, for a guy who's leading a coup, he doesn't have very much to say, and he comes off, his character is not really developed. He's not nearly as eloquent as Richard II. And I just feel like Shakespeare really sympathizes with Richard II, because, my husband said, well, the play is Richard II, so he would be the main star. But I think if William Shakespeare had been more sympathetic to Henry Bolingbroke, he could have really worked on the tension between the two, But it's not really like that. So it's funny to me the way he's presenting the characters. But Richard II is, just to read his long passages, it's just beautiful. It's worth it, just for reading some of those passages. So a very enjoyable play. I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. And now, so we tried to watch part of Henry IV, but like I said, I've been not sleeping well, and I've been so busy, I just fell asleep. So we're gonna, hopefully this week, we'll watch it, and hopefully this will be a slightly better week. And I gotta get this done. Let's see, when? Yeah, so it starts here in the book, and so I have to read that much. Is there much of an intro? There really isn't in these books. No, they just give you the characters at the beginning. So anyway, so I'm going to try and get through this, and I don't know when they're having the discussion on this for Steve Donahue. I'm assuming it's Saturday, so I want to get that done read by Saturday. So, and then at the end of Shaketember, instead of reading Henry V, because I really do know that one the best, I got this out of the library, and because I've never read this one before, The Winter's Tale, and Lukács, I think, at A Cruel Reader's Thesis. And this is a different style. This looks just harder to read to me. It's just on my eyes, but we'll see. This is what I got from the library. So I might do that the last week of September. So it's supposed to go Richard II, the first week, Henry IV, Part 1, the second week, Henry IV, Part 2, the third week, and then the last week, The Winter's Tale. That's how I was planning it. I have to go look at a calendar, see if I've been keeping up with it. So anyway, so other things have suffered. I really focused on Richard II this week. So there was such a bad reading week. And where am I here? Oh yeah. So I'm also in this humorous book club of the month, and we're reading Confederacy of Dunces, and I cannot get traction on this book. I have only read the first 2 chapters, and we're supposed to have read 7, it's 14 chapters, supposed to read 7 chapters the first week and 7 chapters the second week. So it's only supposed to be a 2-week thing. And I just haven't been able to get traction because I've been focusing on Richard II, and I just fall asleep. I read 2 pages and I fall asleep. So this is a weird book. It's got stuff in it that I don't usually enjoy, like bad language and sexual stuff. However, none of it feels extraneous. It's part of it. So you're dealing with some really nutty people living in New Orleans, and the main character is Ignatius Riley, and he's got such a demented worldview. He's overeducated, and but he uses it in a wacky way. He criticizes everything. He's a medievalist who thinks he's been born in the wrong century, so he can't stand anything modern, and he thinks he's sort of the ultimate judge when it comes to what's good taste and isn't good taste, except he has horrible taste. He's just really demented in a way. And I think when I first started reading him, he just seemed, because I had read that the author himself, so this won a Pulitzer Prize, John Kennedy Toole, this was published posthumously. He had committed suicide, and his mother, who figures heavily in this, Ignatius Riley's mother figures heavily in this, his mother got it published through Walker Percy. So Walker Percy, if you're a literary Catholic, Walker Percy is up there with like Flannery O'Connor for an author that you really, really like. And apparently Walker Percy was teaching at Loyola in New Orleans, and the mother of Toole kept pestering him to read her son's, transcript or draft. And so he finally did, and Walker Percy is responsible for getting this published, and it eventually won the Pulitzer. So that's pretty amazing. But this guy had committed suicide, and even though it's still a funny book to me, but it kind of triggered me a little bit because we've had suicide in my family, and we have clinical depressed. I've known clinically depressed people, and they do have this really warped way of judging things, and they can be very judgmental because they're in so much pain, and they have this, their whole world is closed in on them, so they're not thinking straight, and they can be very angry and very judgmental of everything because they have sort of this, they're just not thinking clearly. And I sense sort of an element of that in this, even though it's still funny because it's so absurd. It's like the author took that aspect and blew it up in an exaggerated way to make it just this absurd, silly, comical situation. But I still, and I said that in the Voxer group, and I think I hope it didn't ruin the novel for people. Anyway, it's a strange book. However, it is engaging. It's well written. The characters are really interesting, and you want to know what's going on. So, it's a good book. And I've only gotten 2 chapters. So, you can't judge a book by the first 2 chapters anyway. So I'm hoping somehow this week to really, really get a lot read in this book as well. Because the thing is, I'm supposed to be reading this book this month as well, but I've completely stopped. I want to get this read, so I want to finish this up as early as I can in September, and then just focus on this one. This is Anthony Trollope's Can You Forgive Her, which is the first book in the Palliser series. I wanted to get read in September so that I could read Phineas Finn, the next book, in October, because I have a grandson coming in October to my son and daughter-in-law up in Boston, and they are having a boy, and they've named him Phineas. So I want to read Phineas Finn in October. So I'm really, really committed to that. And then I just want to quick show you, because this has gotten really long, but who knows when I'm going to do another one of these. I am going to read Robert Browning for Victober, and I got my Lorna Doone. I'm going to read this for Victober as well. So for Victober, the only things I'm committing to are this, and the Phineas Finn book, which I don't have with me. So I just realized what time it is. I've been just jabbering away. So I'm so sorry, and I hope this is worthwhile to listen to. I don't know why it would be, but anyway, so I am trying to watch other people's videos and keep up that way. And really, I feel like Instagram, I'm going to be more consistent on Instagram. So I'm Faith Brophy Roberts, just my full name. I'll put it below if I can get this uploaded. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you're doing well, and happy reading. Bye-bye.